Welcome everyone to Ein Sof Learning. I hope everyone's having an amazing day. Now in this video, it's not going to be too complicated or deep, but just to give an understanding of what the 10 Sefirot are within the context of an analogy of planting a tree. So we're going to understand that Keter, Chokhmah, Binah, and so on and so forth, all the way to Malchut, are really stages of God bringing about His perfected world that He wants to create. So what's the first stage in planting a tree? Well, first you need a seed. Obviously, that's the first stage. You need something to actually plant within the soil that you can then water it and it will grow. So the seed corresponds to the first level of the creation process. And that's what we call Keter. Keter is the first Sefirah, the first spiritual level. It's also the highest level of consciousness. But that's a different context whenever we're talking about consciousness. But here we're looking at it as a tree, right? Keter is a seed. And it's the potential for the entire tree. It's not the tree, but it's the potential for the tree. So that's what Keter is the first level, the first stage, which corresponds to Olam Adam Kadmon. Then the second level is whenever this seed begins to really open and it grows roots. These roots correspond to the second level of creation. Whenever the seed goes from just being a seed to now it's a seed, but it has an extension from the source, which is those roots. So this phase corresponds to the second spiritual level called Chokhmah, which corresponds to the world of Atzilut, or the world of emanation. Chokhmah is the second step in the process of creation. And then these roots grow larger and larger, and eventually it starts to form some sort of a stem, which then extends itself up and out of the soil and pops out on the surface, right? What ends up becoming the trunk of the tree, but it starts out as a stem, a small little baby that is a creation. This stage corresponds to Olam Bria, the world of creation. Even though it hasn't yet formed into the tree and the final product, it still is a creation. It's something new that came about from this seed. It first started with the seed, and then the roots grew, and then it really popped out of the soil as a new creation. You have life. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It doesn't say He emanated, but created. That means it's referring to this stage in the creative process. So Binah, the third stage, is the hope. It's the proof that really the creation is taking place, right? So that's the first level of the creative process, because Keter and Chokhmah are really behind the scenes. They're above creation. They're the seed level and the roots, none of which are really a creation. They're just the necessary steps in order to really get to the creation. But what's the creation? It's whenever this stem emerges from the surface of the soil, and now it starts to grow and form into the tree. And what's next in this process? Well, this stem continues to grow. So the next stage is whenever this stem starts to expand itself, it emerges into something very great and big and large and starts to take form and shape. You start seeing the branches, right? There's many different branches in a tree. That's why this stage consists of 6 Sefirot, from Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. So these 6 actually work together. They're not considered to be different stages. They're 6 levels, but they're all one stage of the creative process. And if you want to know, these 6 are collectively referred to as Zeir Anpin, which literally means small face. But again, don't take these things literally. They have special significance whenever you go deeper into Kabbalah and to the mystical side of Judaism. But these 6 Sefirot, it's very important to know that they work together. They're not separate stages. There are 6 levels of the same stage. So that corresponds to Olam Yatzirah, the world of formation, which is the 4th stage of the creative process. And then the 5th stage is the finale. It's the conclusion. It's the end result. It's the fruits of the tree. It's the fully grown human being who's reached his full potential. It's the end result of the creation. It's the final product of the seed. Right? It's the actualized version of the seed. The seed is the potential, and the Malchut, which is what we're talking about here, the Malchut is the result. Malchut is the manifested version of the seed. This is Olam Asiyah, the world of action. Malchut corresponds to the final stage of the creative process, the end result, the purpose which is whenever we have merged Keter and Malchut, the cause and the effect. And that's why when you look into the effect, when you look into the fruits, what will you find? You will find the cause, a seed in the very center. Now this very seed can be planted again to create a whole nother tree, to create a whole nother batch of fruits. And each of those will have another seed in the center of them. So it becomes an endless process of growth, life, expansion, extension, and so on and so forth. That's why it's called the tree of life, because it's a process, it never ends. And that's why the sages say that the whole purpose of creation was for Shabbat. Because yes, it's the end of the week, but it's also the beginning of the next week. Because what's Shabbat? It's Malchut. The 6 days of the week are like the branches, the 6 branches of the tree that we were referring to. And then the 7th day corresponds to Malchut, the 7th day, the Shabbat. That's why we say the famous verse every Shabbat. Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. The end of deed is in the beginning of thought. What's the end of deed? Malchut, the product, the end result, the fruits. That is Sof Ma'aseh, the end of deed. But it was there at the beginning of the thought. In Machshava Techila, it was there in the beginning of the thought, which corresponds to Keter. The first thing that God thought of was actually the end result. But it only existed in thought. It only existed in potential. It was still on the seed level. It wasn't yet actualized or manifested in any tangible way. It just existed in the mind. But nothing gets done in the mind. This is something we can take away for our life. Nothing gets done in the mind until you translate into action, until you actually act on the thought. You can have thousands of ideas, thousands of big dreams, but if you don't actually act on them or bring them into reality or bring them into fruition, then you're not really doing anything. You're just living in la la land. So we have to actualize all of that potential. We have to manifest all of that light which exists in the highest level and bring it down to this world, bring it down to your body. So that way you can share this light with everyone. And that's the whole purpose of the creation. To merge Keter and Malchut. The creator and the creation. The seed and the fruit. Your soul and your body. The light and the vessel. My thoughts and my actions. Me and you. That's the meaning of Echad, oneness. For everyone to be in absolute unity with God and with each other and with the creation and with the Creator. So those are the 5 stages of creation. So just to run through them really quickly one more time. Keter corresponds to the seed. Chokhmah is the roots. Binah is when the trunk really begins to emerge from the surface of the soil. So that's whenever you have the trunk. And then the next 6, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, correspond to the branches. That's why you have 6 of them, because there's many branches in a tree. And then Malchut corresponds to the final product, which is the fruits. So you go from the seed, to the roots, to the trunk, to the branches, and eventually you get the fruits. These are the 5 levels of creation. And this is just one way of understanding it within the context of a tree, which is why it's called the tree of life. Because there's different stages to the tree, right? There's the seed, there's the roots, there's the trunk, there's the branches, and the fruits. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.